A self-assured black entrepreneur walks into an upscale financial institution, expecting a routine transaction. But a dismissive clerk decides otherwise, judging her presence as out of place, and proceeds to embarrass her in front of others. What unfolds when she reveals her true identity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Nia Robinson entered the hall, the sound of her heels echoing on the glossy tile floor. The scent of ink and crisp paper lingered in the air. Clients lounged in plush chairs, while quiet conversations filled the space. She barely noticed the sidelong glances or the subtle tension in the room as staff and customers took in her presence. She wasn't here for attention, just business. With poise, she approached the counter, a black folder tucked under one arm. Her charcoal blazer hugged her figure, paired with ivory slacks that spoke of elegance. Her coiled hair was swept into a graceful bun, giving her an air of quiet authority. Nia had faced too many closed doors to let anyone try to shrink her now, but the moment her eyes met those of Colleen Masters, she knew this wouldn't be a normal. Visit Colleen, a woman in her 50s with frosted hair and a tight, judgmental smile, gave Nia a look filled with subtle contempt. She adjusted her pearl earrings and shifted stiffly in her chair. "How can I help you?" Her tone was cold and distant. Nia kept calm. "I need to initiate a wire transfer, a significant one. Also, I'd like to review details on my business accounts." Colleen's eyes darted to Nia's outfit, and she paused, hesitant. "What kind of business?" she asked sharply. Nia lifted an eyebrow at the tone. "Robinson & Co., a name, well known in the city's business circles." But if Colleen recognized it, she gave no sign. Instead, she let out a dry chuckle. "You own that?" Her smirk deepened, as if Nia had just made an amusing claim. Nia had seen this before. The quiet disbelief, the silent accusation. "Do you really belong here?" But today, she wasn't in the mood. "Yes," she replied firmly, "and I'd like to proceed without delay." Colleen gave an exaggerated sigh, her nails tapping against the keyboard. "For large transfers, there are protocols. I'll need verification of account ownership." Nia was ready. She placed her folder on the counter and pulled out a stack of neatly prepared documents, corporate account info, tax filings, recent bank statements. Colleen skimmed them carelessly and shook her head. "This isn't enough." Nia inhaled slowly. "That's everything required for confirmation." Colleen crossed her arms, still unconvinced. "You don't have a business debit card? A checkbook? Something with your name?" Nia's grip on the folder tightened. "Ms. Masters, are these official requirements, or just yours?" Colleen's smirk faded, only for a second. Then came the scoff. "I'm just doing my job. You can never be too cautious," Colleen said, feigning concern. "We deal with a lot of fraudulent activity lately." Nia didn't miss the implication. "You don't belong here. You must be faking it. People like you don't run real companies, not ones that work with private banking anyway." She could feel the stares. Other clients, employees, even the security guard near the entrance was shifting uneasily. Nia drew in a slow breath. "Not today. I'd like to speak with your manager." Colleen rolled her eyes but managed a forced smile. "Ma'am, I'm assisting you. Speaking with a manager won't change anything." "I'd like to speak with them anyway." Colleen let out a loud theatrical sigh, clearly putting on a show. "For the whole lobby." "Fine, if you insist." She turned to press a button on her desk. Moments later, a man in a sharp gray suit walked over briskly. This was Anthony Reyes, the branch director. He glanced at both women, his expression already tense. "Ms. Masters, what seems to be the issue?" Colleen quickly shifted to mock concern. "This woman is requesting a major transfer. I just want to ensure everything is legitimate." "You understand how risky these things can be," she added, voice overly sweet. Anthony looked toward Nia, then at the papers she'd provided. Is there any indication something's off? Colleen opened her mouth, but Nia spoke first. Your employee declined to process my request, even though I've provided every document required. Her voice was steady. And while she never said it outright, she made it clear I don't fit her idea of who should be moving this kind of money. The entire bank went quiet. The other tellers paused mid-transaction, watching. Anthony's face darkened. Miss Masters, is this true? Colleen stammered. I was only following protocol. Anthony turned to Nia. I apologize sincerely. Let me handle this for you immediately. Colleen's face went pale, but when she tried to speak again, Anthony raised a hand, silencing her. We do not tolerate bias toward our clients, Ms. Masters. Nia gave Colleen one last calm look before sliding the documents across the desk. Thank God. You! As Anthony began entering the information, Colleen sat frozen, humiliated, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of her desk. But Nia wasn't finished. She leaned in just slightly, her voice calm, sharp like glass. Since you're so worried about fraud, you might want to be extra cautious. Because I happen to be one of the top shareholders in this institution. Colleen's face went ghost white. Nia offered a small, pointed smile. And I'll be looking closely at how some employees interact with certain clients. Silence fell over the entire branch. The security guard looked stunned. Whispers spread like wildfire. Tellers glanced around nervously, as if seeing their own actions through new eyes. Colleen's lips parted, but no words came out. Nia's calm smile didn't fade. I'm a major stakeholder. She reached into her black folder once more, this time pulling out a clearly printed financial report. She slid it across the desk toward Anthony, the branch manager, never breaking. Eye contact with Colleen. This should resolve any doubts about my position. Anthony picked up the paper, his eyes scanning the figures. His neutral look shifted, from formal interest to genuine alarm. Nia Robinson wasn't just another client. She held more stock in the institution than anyone present, even more than Anthony himself. Colleen must have caught his reaction. She let out a shaky laugh, the kind people give when they realize they've made a huge mistake. I had no idea. I mean, there was no way I could have... Nia tilted her head, cool and composed. No way to what, exactly? Colleen swallowed. To know who you are. Nia's voice dropped, calm but razor sharp. And that's the real issue, isn't it? Colleen blinked fast, her mascara smudging, sweat beading along her temple. I didn't mean, but Nia continued unfazed. You looked at me and instantly assumed. You thought I was here to cause trouble. That I was trying to scam my way into something I already help own. You never once considered that I might deserve to be taken seriously. The silence in the bank grew heavier. Customers were whispering, some of them nodding quietly, especially those who'd clearly lived through something similar. A few black clients exchanged knowing looks, silent expressions that spoke volumes. Anthony cleared his throat, visibly rattled. Ms. Robinson, please accept my deepest apologies. This is not how we treat our clients. Nia raised one eyebrow. Isn't it, though? Anthony hesitated. Nia let the silence speak for her. Tell me, how often does something like this happen in your branch? His jaw clenched. We always aim to offer the highest quality of service to everyone who walks through that door. Do you? Nia tapped her nails slowly against the counter. Then, from the back of the room, a voice broke through. This isn't the first time. Everyone turned. An older black gentleman in a clean slate-gray suit stepped forward. He adjusted his jacket and looked around the bank. I've been coming here for over 10 years, and more times than I can count, I've been treated like a suspect just for wanting access to my own funds. A woman in a burgundy wrap dress nodded. Happens to me too. I earn 6 figures, but they always question my deposits. A younger black man in a leather jacket added, They always drag their feet when it's me, like they're waiting for Me to mess up. He pointed subtly toward the white customers nearby. But them, they walk in, get what they want, no hassle. Colleen's face drained of color. Still composed, Nia looked back at Anthony. Seems like I'm not the only one. With concerns, sweat gleamed on his brow. He was cornered. Admit the problem and expose the failure of his team. Colleen's breathing had grown shallow. She could feel what was coming. "Miss Robinson," she whispered. I made a mistake." Nia looked at her in silence for a long beat. "No," she said softly but firmly. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a decision." That truth hit Colleen like a weight on her chest. Then, without raising her voice, Nia delivered the words that sealed her fate. "I'd start the review with her." The room gasped. Several people even sat up straighter. Colleen's jaw dropped. "What?" Nia didn't blink. She's shown she can't treat clients with fairness. "You said you'd be examining staff conduct. Begin with her." Anthony's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. "Ms. Robinson, I understand how upset you are." "This isn't anger," Nia cut in calmly. "This is called accountability." From the back, the older black man gave a low hum of agreement. "Long. Overdue." The atmosphere thickened. No one moved. Everyone knew this moment would change the culture here. Colleen let out a panicked, shaky laugh. "Wait, you're not serious!" Nia's expression didn't flinch. "Oh, I am." Colleen turned to Anthony, her voice rising in desperation. "You're not really going to fire me, are you? I've been here for years. This was just a misunderstanding." Anthony hesitated. "Colleen," she gripped the counter, her knuckles white. "She's going to destroy my life over a single mistake." Nia sighed gently. "No, you did that." "Yourself." Anthony stood straighter. "Colleen, please step into my office." Colleen froze, her chest heaving. She looked around, searching the room for someone to defend her. No one spoke. She let out one last trembling breath before walking out from behind the counter, following Anthony to the back. As the door closed behind them, a collective breath filled the bank, customers murmured. Some shook their heads. Others nodded, quietly satisfied. Nia took a deep breath, then turned back to the desk. "Now," she said, her voice calm and composed, "about my transfer." The teller next to her, a young man who had watched everything with wide, stunned eyes, stepped in instantly. "Yes, of course, Ms. Robinson. I'll take care of it right away." The moment Colleen left, everything changed. Employees moved faster. Clients were greeted with fresh attention. It was like a stale pressure had lifted from the air. As for Nia, she allowed herself a small smile. This wasn't just about her transaction. It was about making sure no one else would be treated like this again. And she wasn't finished. Later, Nia sat comfortably in the bank's private office, sipping the complimentary espresso the assistant manager had rushed to bring her. Outside the glass wall, the atmosphere had shifted. Staff were now overly helpful, speaking in polished tones, their actions driven more by fear than genuine courtesy. Fear of becoming the next Colleen. Across from her, Anthony sat at his desk, hands folded tightly. Karen's absence was noticeable. Anthony cleared his throat. "Ms. Robinson, I want to extend my sincerest apologies for everything that occurred. I take full responsibility for the lapse in professionalism." Nia stirred her espresso with the tiny gold spoon they'd provided. Her face unreadable. "She's no longer employed here. Is that correct?" Anthony nodded. "Yes, that's correct." Nia finally looked up, steady. "And what exactly are you doing to make sure it doesn't happen again?" Anthony paused, caught off guard by how quickly he was being held accountable. "Well, we're planning to reevaluate our customer service protocols and offer some additional training to the team." Nia gently set down her gold spoon, the clicked quiet but pointed. "Anthony, she interrupted, her tone smooth and steady. That's just corporate talk, for nothing's really going to change. He flinched. Ms. Robinson, I promise I'm not asking for promises, she said, leaning forward slightly. I'm asking for action. Anthony let out a slow breath. He knew vague reassurances wouldn't cut it. Not this time. What are you proposing? Nia allowed herself a faint smile. Since you asked, I'd like to meet with your regional director within the next 7 days. Anthony's expression shifted. That's quite a request. It is, she agreed. But I'm one of your major shareholders, and I think it's more than fair. He swallowed, her words heavy with consequence. He'd spent his career managing pressure from above, but never had he felt this exposed in front of someone from the outside, especially someone who held real power. I'll make it happen, he said finally, his voice tight. Nia nodded, satisfied. Good. She stood, adjusting her blazer. I'll expect an email by the end of the day with the meeting details. Anthony rose quickly, offering a handshake. Of course, Ms. Robinson. She didn't take his hand right away. She held his gaze, quiet, firm, unshaken. Only after a long pause did she reach out and shake it. Her grip steady, unapologetic. As she exited the office, Anthony exhaled, knowing this wasn't just a complaint. This was a reckoning. When Nia returned to the main floor, the shift in atmosphere was visible. The black customers who had spoken earlier watched her with quiet pride. The woman in the burgundy dress gave her a nod. The older man in the slate-gray suit rested a hand on her shoulder. You did more in 20 minutes than I've managed in 20 years, he murmured. Nia gave him a knowing glance. It's about time. As she walked toward the exit, the security guard who'd stood silent until now finally spoke. Ms. Robinson. She turned. The guard, a stocky man in his late 40s, gave her a sheepish but grateful smile. Much respect. Nia nodded once, then stepped out into the fresh air. She drew a long breath. The fight wasn't over. It never really was. But today she'd drawn a line in the sand, and the bank felt it. 1 week later, Nia sat inside a sleek, glass-walled boardroom on the 30th floor of corporate headquarters. The skyline sparkled behind her, sunlight bouncing off towers of steel and glass. Across the table sat Richard Langley, the regional director, a man in his mid-50s with the look of someone used to dodging consequences. But today, there was no hiding. Nia placed a thick manila folder on the table. Nia smiled. You're going to fund and launch an independent racial bias audit across every branch under your leadership, she said clearly. And I'll personally oversee its implementation. Richard opened his mouth, ready to protest, but stopped himself, because he knew. He knew Nia Robinson wasn't just another upset client. She was a storm. And this wasn't a suggestion. It was a directive. The shift began. 2 months later, change was finally in motion. A third-party bias review was underway at every location in the region. Staff were enrolled in mandatory training on racial sensitivity and equity. A dedicated hotline had been created for clients to report discrimination directly, but most importantly, the financial world was paying attention. News stories started circulating. A powerful black entrepreneur had taken on a major banking institution, demanding reform. And it wasn't just about her. It was about anyone who had ever been made to feel they didn't belong in places they had every right to be. One morning, Nia sat at her desk, a fresh contract in front of her. Aurora Capital Group. Opening 2025. Her own financial firm, built on fairness, transparency, and dignity for all. No tolerance for prejudice. No space for bias. She picked up her pen, signed her name with bold confidence, and leaned back in her chair. The day. She was humiliated at that bank. Had been the day everything changed, not just for her, but for everyone after her.